Briar Stewart was our Moscow correspondent before the war in Moscow, the war about Russia's war on Ukraine changed things, and she has done extensive reporting on Navalny and Russian politics. Briar, I'm so glad to have you in the chair. So anything that you're hearing, just in additional detail to the breaking word, the reports of the death of Alexei Navalny.
Well, I can tell you, Heather, even though there has been great concern about Alexei Navalny's health for years, really since he was imprisoned back in 2021, after returning to the country from Germany, where he was recovering from an attempted poisoning with nerve agent. I mean, there have been a lot of concerns about just how he was being treated in prison. And now it appears, at least from these reports from the prison service, the worst fears for his supporters have come true, that he has died. Now, it's very important to note that his team, his supporters, his family has not confirmed this yet. His lawyer is on the way to the region where he was staying, where Navalny was imprisoned. It's a penal colony above the Arctic Circle, very remote. And in fact, when Navalny was moved there back in December, he disappeared off the radar for 3 weeks. There was 3 weeks where even his lawyer didn't know where he was, and that's because he was transferred from a prison much closer to Moscow to this very remote one, and there was a lot of concern that it would be bad for his health. It was very cold. Navalny is someone that is frequently put in solitary confinement in very small spaces. And I can tell you that in the past, I've spoken to Russian doctors. We've talked to doctors who have, very kind of bravely and publicly put their names on documents, letters to the Kremlin urging, officials to ensure that the prison service would treat Navalny better, because they were very worried about his health. He frequently appeared, when he appeared on video link from prison, he was, really looking gaunt. He had lost a lot of weight, and now I think there is just great concern because of these reports from the prison service. And even though you don't have official confirmation from his team and his supporters right now, reaction is certainly coming in. You mentioned the reaction from the Latvian president. There's also reaction from people within Russia too. Dmitry Muratov, who was the editor of Novaya Gazeta, he won a Nobel laureate, the Nobel Peace Prize for his work. He has described this, according to reports, as murder. And so I think what we really need to be watching for as this unfolds, Heather, is just what is the reaction, because we know that before Navalny was imprisoned and even afterwards, he was somebody who drew large crowds of supporters out to Moscow, particularly to protest. Then we had this large crackdown, this increasingly repressive crackdown. A lot of his supporters had to flee the country. Some of them are living in the UK, some in Latvia, some in the Baltics. And I think, we'll be seeing reaction from all around the world today.
So let me bring you some further reaction. The Secretary General of NATO, Briar, that's Jens Stoltenberg, saying he's deeply saddened and disturbed by reports coming from Russia that Navalny is dead, that all facts need to be established. Again, we are citing reports right now in the official statement from the Russian prison service, but of course needing corroboration, and also saying that Russia has some very serious questions to answer. I just mentioned that initial line that there's going to be sort of a procedural investigation on the part of the investigative committee. How would this work? I'll get to the legacy in a second, but I'm just wondering, there'll be people who have a lot of suspicions about any Russian account or any Russian version of the facts that led to Alexei Navalny's death, Briar. So how should we parse things that are coming into us?
Absolutely. I think, his supporters have every right to be suspicious, and really, so does everybody. I mean, the Kremlin would not even, use his name. Like when Vladimir Putin, the president, was asked questions about Navalny, he would not even want to say Navalny's name. He just didn't really want to acknowledge him. Of course, we know that Navalny ended up in Russian prison after he returned from Germany. He nearly died after an attempted poisoning. And so, this is somebody who there was great fears, really, that he was, the Kremlin's number one target for quite some time. To sort of have Russia's own investigative committee say they're launching a probe, well, you can understand why his supporters and really so many people outside of Russia particularly are deeply skeptical of that. And in fact, I'm just, reading some of the reaction that's coming out, and one of his supporters, actually somebody from his team, has said that they don't, they have no reason to believe any Russian propaganda at the moment. So it's not exactly clear what he's referring to, but this is why we haven't seen his team come out and confirm his death at this point. Because
but we did hear that his lawyer is flying to Karp to try to get verification on all of that. More reaction, Briar, coming in. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, this is terrible news. Also saying, as the fiercest advocate for Russian democracy, Alexei Navalny demonstrated incredible courage throughout his life. So that is initial reaction. I'm going to play some reaction in a moment from, again, some of the leaders gathered in Munich for the security conference. But just before I let you go this time, Briar, because I'll certainly want you to be joining us back for ongoing coverage of this breaking news. Again, the place of this man as, the thorn in Putin's side, if you will, such a fierce opponent critic. What will we be talking about mostly today as far as the legacy and what he's tried to fight for democracy?
Yeah, fierce opponent, and I think that reaction that just came out from Rishi Sunak really sums it up well. He had said that Navalny is someone who showed incredible courage throughout his life. I mean, he was somebody who openly challenged the Kremlin, challenged corrupt officials, did it from within Russia, and he's someone who chose to return to Russia after that poisoning attempt. I mean, he traveled back to Russia knowing that he would most likely be jailed for several years and that there was no way out. And I think a lot of people looked at that as if it was just a remarkable act of courage, somebody that was very committed to the cause. And even since then, over the last, 2.5 years, he and his foundation, his supporters, who all of them, really most of them, are working outside of Russia right now, they have continued to go after the Kremlin, to go after top officials, not only over what Russia is doing in Ukraine, but just over corruption in general and how the Kremlin works. And, they put out videos on YouTube, which are highly popular, highlighting corruption and Putin's a secret palace, which Navalny and his people said Putin had, off the coast of the Black Sea. So this is somebody who continually challenged the Kremlin, and really to the point where he put himself, where he ended up in this position, and he chose to return to Russia and keep doing it, even though he could have stayed out of the country and continued to speak out from outside of the country, but by choosing to return is really quite remarkable.
Briar, thank you for that conversation. We'll certainly be speaking again.